So we've discussed different parts of the body where we have a number of normal flora in existence. The urogenital tract, the gastrointestinal tract, areas around the eyes, the oral cavity, the respiratory tract, a number of places where we've got microflora. But let's kind of talk about some of the reasons we have these organisms residing in these locations, and primarily the beneficial roles of why they're there. And so humans tend to get a lot of different benefits from their indigenous microflora. Some examples of these benefits include different vitamins, such as vitamin K as well as vitamin B12, that help assist in our own metabolic processes. Vitamin K in particular helps to assist in getting our blood cells to coagulate when needed. And then vitamin B12 helps to assist in enabling the body's nervous system to function correctly. So those are some pretty important vitamins that are help generated by our indigenous microflora. There's a term known as microbial antagonism, which I've kind of alluded to this a little bit already when I was making the analogy of bacteria serving as cars and parking spaces on your body. With microbial antagonism, you have microbes competing against other microbes. So having, again, organisms residing on your body, they prevent other organisms from being able to colonize you as well. And those organisms could be much more antagonistic to you, but the competition factor of competing for residential locations on the body enables this whole concept of microbial antagonism, where you have the prevention of, where you have one bacteria preventing another bacteria from being able to colonize. And so to enforce this is not just about being present in these different regions of the body, but bacteria will also start to develop their own kind of defense mechanisms, such as bacteriocins that are used to help fight other other bacterial organisms. So say you have Streptococcus aureus that resides on your body, and it might express a bactericin that would prevent something like Clostridium sporogenes from colonizing your body through the production of some sort of antibacterial protein. So that could inhibit bacteria. Some bacteria could also produce the use of, or their own type example of an antibiotic, where they will secrete something and it will inhibit the growth of another bacteria that may want to also colonize in that area. And a good example is that of E. coli and their expression of their own kind of antibacterial protein, which is called colicin. And colicin will help to enhance the growth of E. coli while suppressing the growth of other bacteria that might want to reside in the same area. So this is microbial antagonism, essentially bacteria's defense, an attack mechanism against another bacteria growing as part of your normal flora. Okay, so the harmful roles of the microflora, like we said, these guys are primarily opportunistic, which means when given the chance, they can be pathogenic because they get from an area where they are supposed to be and move to another area where they're not supposed to be. So these specific microorganisms will kind of, they could be hanging out in an area, just waiting for an area to open up, and then they can, make their way in. So this can be, areas, like I said, kind of around the urogenital tract, so the areas where the vagina is. You just have bacteria waiting around there, hoping for the opportunity to being brought in to the vaginal cavity. What else do you have? So some other examples, which are specific examples of different organisms that can be considered opportunistic pathogens. You've probably heard of some of these before. You've probably heard of E. coli. You've probably heard of S. aureus. I know we've talked about S. aureus, but you probably heard of it somewhere outside of this course. With both of these organisms, they just wait for a chance to be internalized into the body. E. coli, for example, when you go to the bathroom and you excrete waste products through the large intestine, there's E. coli that gets caught up in the area where the anus is situated. And again, through improper wiping procedures, if you're wiping not the correct way, that E. coli can be transmitted up into, primarily in women, in the vagina area, which could lead to entry into the body through improper personal hygiene practices. For a male, because of the male anatomy, with the penis being external to the body, the likelihood of that happen is pretty minimal, unless of course there's a wiping effect, which leads to wiping of the top of the penis where the urogenital opening is. But for the most case, that's kind of a good example, I think, of how opportunistic pathogens become pathogenic, because we're giving them the chance to do that. There could be other things too, so other Enterobacteriaceae or Enterococcus subspecies. Many of these all reside in the gastrointestinal tract. So maybe you use the restroom and you forget to wash your hands, and then you get these organisms from your hands. Somehow your hands get them into your mouth, and then the organisms are transmitted down your digestive tract. Or maybe you didn't wash your hands and you rub areas of the face. So there are different examples of how you can get opportunistic pathogens into the body. And a lot of them really have ties to just poor hygiene practices. Or you may be living in areas where they just don't have those type of hygiene resources. Like some less developed countries where they don't have fluoride, or they don't have toothbrushes or toothpaste. So that gives a good opportunity for a lot of the normal flora to, kind of seize an immunocompromised person because of the poor resources that they grew up in. S. aureus as well. This is one of the organisms that a lot of physicians, as well, or primarily surgeons, would worry about colonizing or getting into the cardiovascular system during a surgery procedure, because when you cut into somebody, you're also cutting through that bacteria, normal flora, that's all over the body, and once you cut into that, you could potentially release those organisms down into the cardiovascular system. So we talked already about the balance between the normal flora and the host, and how that can be disruptive by several factors. We talked about the changes in pH. These bacteria that reside on the outside of your skin, they like a specific type of pH. They also like a specific concentration of salinity. The bacteria that reside in your gut like very acidic conditions. The bacteria that reside on the outside of your skin, they like a little bit less acidic kind of environment. So it kind of just depends on the location. And then if you take antibiotics, you can easily disrupt all that normal flora, because your antibiotics can either wipe out a lot of different bacteria, or it could be specific, if it's a narrow spectrum antibiotic, to wiping out a few. But either way, those can induce a lot of changes and disrupt that balance between the host and the normal flora. We use a lot of different bacteria, as well as small fungi called yeast, to develop different therapies that can hopefully enhance or improve human health. And when we do this, we refer to these as biotherapeutic agents or probiotics. And these types of agents can help to keep our normal flora in balance or in check. And, you know, by taking care of our normal flora, you essentially can be improving better health for yourself. So these biotherapeutic agents, is just kind of one way that we help to kind of keep this balance that we know is very important to our survival. I'm going to try to blow up this picture a little bit more, but this is an image that highlights different genres of bacteria, of where they reside inside the body. So this figure up here, or at least this first picture, just kind of demonstrates the female urinary tract as well as the reproductive system. Let me try to blow it up. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I know that's kind of outside the framework there. But like I've kind of highlighted some of these genres before, the Lactobacillus, which is a probiotic, Streptococcus, which is a whole bunch of very small circular bacteria that form chains together. And then we have Staphylococcus, which are bacteria that are round in shape, just like the Streptococcus, but they have a different arrangement, where the cells are actually arranged in grape-like structures. There's bacteroids, Clostridium candida, which is actually a fungus, which can lead to, in some females, yeast infections. And then Trichomonas, which is actually a protozoan that can reside in this whole regional system of the female body. Now, the microbiota or microflora sometimes can change depending on what's happening in this area. So as a female goes through the process of menstruation, you may see or experience a change in the acidity of the vagina. And when that happens, that can also, you know, affect all of these different genres that are residing in this area. You can also have kind of the streamline flow of urine that can also be used to impact what colonizes the urethra in the female. And that streamline flow is a good protective measure that helps to prevent bacteria from colonizing that area. Again, kind of creating that sterile environment that is typical of it. Let's remember the vagina area, the opening is where we're going to see a lot of different genre. But for the most part, all these areas here should be very sterile, and that's due to, you know, kind of the types of the type of pH that exists in this area. For the male urinary reproductive systems, their defense mechanism is like females, where you have the flow streamline of urine that helps to push different that helps to quell different organisms from residing in that location. But then we also have some similar genres, Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, but we see some different ones, Mycobacterium, which are bacteria that can reside inside of the cells, different Bactoids, as well as Fusobacterium and Peptostreptococcus, which is also kind of a very similar to Streptococcus genre that we've talked about a little bit already. And then that brings us to the eyes and the skin. Let me zoom this a little bit to get it in place. Where you have Propion bacterium, Staphylococcus, Corneum bacterium, Micrococcus, Malassezia bacteria, which is I'm gotta blow this a little bit so I can read. Malassezia, which is a type of fungus, and then Candida, which is also a fungus that resides in these areas of the eye and the skin. So this is kind of highlighting parts of that area. Let's see if there's anything in here that's pretty interesting. So this kind of highlights where you're going to have existence of different normal flora, consisting, you know, in regions around this eye. So on the outer portion, as well as where you have dead layers of skin and in the hair follicles, and the pores of glands. So there's a lot of different locations just in this eye area in general where bacteria can harbor themselves.